Louis Demented, the head executioner of France, saw difficulty with his latest condemned man. Demented, 75 years old, saw many men who went to their deaths with some nobility, but this one fought his captors aggressively, attempting to escape his sentence. The executioner had seen so many executions that he prepared for retirement due to a phobia developed during his long career of the sight of blood. But for this execution, he held on to see the sentence of the court carried out with all duty. With no rhyme or reason, the condemned man, Joseph Vacher, exhibited no pattern to his mayhem, that of murdering indiscriminately people of all ages and genders with no sense of human decency or mercy attached to his actions. He believed himself to be an avenger, murdering among his victims prostitutes. But in other crimes, Vacher demonstrated a sociopathic, psychopathic fury within dispatching of his victims. Furthermore, Vacher not only brutalized his victims, he sodomized some and literally tore others to pieces. His frenzied attacks dumbfounded authorities who believed they were looking for a sexually insane madman bent on the destruction of any human whom he made contact. In the end, Vacher's victims totaled more than Jack the Ripper, yet little is known of the man who terrorized a whole country near the end of the 19th century. Joseph Vacher was born in 1869 to a very destitute farming family in the Alpine Valley in southwest France, the youngest of 15. He attended a Catholic school in his village, and teachers noted that even as a young child, Vacher exhibited traits of a bad temper where he was easily excitable. A large amount of the details about Vacher's early life are not well known, but what historians have discerned is that at the age of 17 years old, Vacher either joined the army or enlisted as a result of conscription. As his temper got the better of him, Vacher realized that promotions in the military would not come as fast as he resisted authority. Because of the pace at which recognition did not come, Vacher attempted suicide by trying to cut his own throat. The slash was not deep enough to warrant serious medical attention, and whether his superiors felt sorry for him or sought to dismiss him from the military, Vacher received a promotion to corporal. While on leave, Vacher met a young woman named Louise Baron. He immediately fell in love, a feeling unrequited. In 1893, when the military finally discharged Vacher, he went looking for the woman he loved. Vacher then proposed marriage to Louise, but she refused. In response to her rebuke, taunting the man with the thought that she would never marry him, he brandished a pistol and shot Louise 4 times, then turned the gun on himself. Fortunately, Louise survived. Unfortunately, Vacher survived also. The bullet fired into Vacher's head lodged there and caused paralysis in his face and would remain there until his death. After shooting Louise and injuring himself, Vacher was confined to a mental institution in the small town of Dole, Jura. After being institutionalized for over a year, the doctors pronounced the young man, quote, cured, end quote. After his release from the asylum, Vacher joined the ranks of the homeless of France and began work as a day laborer. It was at this time that Vacher claimed his first victim. Vacher's first documented murder occurred when he attacked and overpowered a shepherdess named Eugenie Delhomme, 21 years old. Vacher strangled and stabbed the young woman to death and placed her body in a hedge where a shepherdess discovered it. Investigators noted that the young girl's body had been violated after death in what was described as a, quote, frenzied assault, end quote. Vacher took liberties with victims that seemed very scandalous and grotesque at the time. Between his release in 1894 and the time of his capture in 1897, Vacher murdered 11 people, 5 teenage boys, 5 teenage girls, and 1 adult woman. Many of the victims were shepherds who took care of their flocks as Vacher attacked them. At the time of his arrest, Vacher, for some reason, confessed to killing 11, but during the time he hunted, the toll reached 27 murders in southwest France at the very same time. But Vacher maintained he only killed 11. When charged, Vacher claimed insanity and stated that he could prove it. The suspect averred that a rabid dog bit him, causing blood poisoning and madness. When that didn't work, he claimed the, quote, quack, end quote, cure offered to him by doctors at the insane asylum where he was first institutionalized. In examining many of his statements in the present context, Vacher could be said to have been suffering from schizophrenia. Vacher also claimed that God contacted him and compelled him to commit the murders, often comparing himself to religious figures such as Joan of Arc. In order to make sure that the French government would sentence a sane but mentally sick man to the guillotine, authorities employed the most renowned medico-forensics expert in France, Alexandre Lacazane, one of the founding fathers of modern criminology and also a founder of the French School of Criminal Psychology. Lacazane firmly believed that criminal behavior was a response to the physical environment and provoked an inclination to commit crime. Lacazane and his team of examiners set out to determine whether Vacher was aware of his crimes as they were at the time he committed them, and they needed to determine that he was aware the crimes were wrong, even though he did try to conceal what he had done. Although the panel of experts determined that Vacher experienced the occasional delusions and suffered from, quote, a persecution complex, end quote, Lacazane and his colleagues determined Vacher capable of standing trial. In October of 1898, Vacher entered the courtroom at Bourg-en-Bresse and shouted, quote, "Glory to Jesus! Long live Joan of Arc! Glory to the great martyr of our time! Glory to the great Savior!" End quote. And even though he confessed to 11 brutal and sadistic murders, he would only be tried for one. Most observers believed that Vacher designed his outburst as a play for insanity due to the fact that he believed he could escape from any asylum. The suspected brutalizer tried to turn the trial into a circus as he wore a white rabbit hat, quote, as a symbol of purity, end quote, and howling and screeching throughout the course of the trial. But the court would not be fooled, and readily convinced that Vacher was sane, determined by Lacazane. The jury found him guilty and sentenced him to death. On December 31st, 1898, Vacher was led to the guillotine, but not without a fight. He would not admit he was about to die, and fought tooth and nail his jailers before being placed into the guillotine's clutches. Finally, when being prepared for execution, Vacher declared,
"You think to expiate the faults of France by having me die? That will not be enough. You are committing another. I am another victim. Fin de siècle."
His last sentence, roughly translated, means end of the century. Of course, this would not be the end of the serial killer as we know it. Instead, a whole new generation of these monsters would come to fruition, and the next generation after that, and after that. It will take the hard work of a society that determines itself to be understanding of criminal nature, behavior, and signature to prevent these murders from taking just one more life.